Over the last two parts, we have walked across the fossil bed of Kobifora on the eastern shore of Lake Turkana, one of the richest windows into human evolution anywhere on Earth. We made a family tree that branched instead of climbing in a straight line. We put the first sharp stone tools into an ancient hand and found something disturbing, evidence that one hominins may have used a blade on the body of another. We walked among the elephant, hippos, and carnivores that shared this landscape and met the researchers who are still today kneeling in the same dust. If you have just joined us, we recommend starting with part 1. Now, in this final part, we bring everything together and ask what Kobe Fora truly tells us about the story of us. There is a strange problem with famous fossil sites. The public tend to remember their spectacular discoveries, while scientists often learn just as much from everything else. Kobe for a real importance never built on one skull. It comes from the sheer accumulation of evidence. The teeth, jaw fragments, cranial pieces, animal fossils, stone flakes, sediment layer, volcanic ash, and the cut mark. Each fragment answers one question while quietly raising another, and together they expose several persistent myths. The first is the myth of the evolutionary march. The image you have probably seen 100 times, a crossed ape-like figure on one side and modern human on the other, with a few stages walking in between. Kobe Fura shows exactly why that image failed. Human evolution was never in queue. Different hominin lineages existed across overlapping periods, some more robust, some with different diets, some with entirely different brain size and facial anatomy. Evolution does not replace one clean model with another, it branched. The second myth is that a bigger brain automatically means a more advanced species. Evolution isn't a rank system. A species survives because its adaptation works within its environment, not because it's marching towards some predetermined goal. Paranthropus survived for an extraordinarily long time, with anatomy specialized in ways very different from Homo. Its eventually disappear does not mean it was a failed attempt at becoming human. It was its own lineage, running its own course. The third myth is that stone technology advanced in a neat, tidy sequence. Simple tools, then better tools again. The reality is far messier. Technology tradition overlapped. Useful technology persisted for generations. Different groups respond differently to whatever materials and conditions surrounds them. The archaeological record isn't a staircase. And perhaps the most important fact about Kobe Fora is this. Some of the greatest scientific power comes simply from time. Because the deposit preserves such a long, continuous sequence, scientists can compare changes across enormous stretch of the past. A single fossil is a photograph. A long geological and fossil sequence is closer to a film, an incomplete one, with missing frames, damaged sections, and moments out of focus, but with enough surviving footage to reveal real moments. Environment shift, animal community change, hominins anatomy transform, technology take on new forms. And across that deep record, one message comes through clearly. Human evolution was never simple. So why should Kobe Fora matter? Why should fossil buried in northern Kenya reshape the way we understand ourselves? Because Kobe Fora helped reshape a simple question with a better one. The old question was which species came next. The better question is how did multiple hominins lineages respond differently to a changing world? That shift in perspective is enormous. It pulls up away from a story of inevitable process and towards something closer to the truth. Evolution as experimentation. Different anatomies, different diets, different ecological strategies, different behaviors. Some lineages disappeared, others held on longer, and eventually, one branch of Homo would lead through a long and complicated evolutionary history to Homo sapiens. But our survival was never guaranteed. There was no destination written into the rock, no plan pointing towards cities, writings, artifact, or computers. For most of our evolutionary history, our ancestors were simply organisms trying to survive another day. Find water, find food, avoid predators, protect the offspring, remember the useful place, learn from each other, and adapt whatever the world shifted beneath them. The evidence from Kobe 4 also pushes us to take behavior seriously. Stone technology is more than sharp edge. It demands a real interaction between mind, hand, material, and experience. Our stone has to be chosen. Our strike has to be delivered with precision. The result has to be understood, and the skill behind it repeated, and quite possibly passed on socially from one individual to another. Over generation, behavior itself become part of adaptation, and that's one of the deepest root of the entire human story. Our bodies evolved, but increasingly, our survival also depend on what our body could learn to do. Make, remember, repeat, perhaps teach, and share. Kobe Fura does not give us the beginning of language. It does not give us art, and it does not give us city, but it preserves fragments of the much deeper foundation beneath all of those later achievements. A world where behavior and technology were already becoming essential for survival. The site also confronts us with something uncomfortable. We like to imagine human evolution as a story of cooperation, and cooperation certainly did become center of our survival. But the cut mark tibia is a reminder that the social lives of ancient hominids may also have included competition, aggression, or opportunistic explosion. We should not build an entire theory of ancient society out of one fossil, but we should not sand down the past into something more comfortable than the evidence allow either. Our evolutionary history holds both cooperation and conflicts, innovation and extinction, success and disappearance, all at once. Before our greatest lesson may be this: the human story was never written by one species walking confidently towards the future, but it was shaped by many different humans, each facing an uncertain world on its own terms, and most of them are no longer here. Here, on the eastern shore of Lake Turkana, the ground has preserved something far more complicated than a simple story of human progress. Kobifora revealed a world crowded with possibly different hominid species walking the same landscape, some of them sharing wider region during overlapping period. All of them adapted to shifting lake, changing river, expanding grassland, and climate that refused to stay still. They carried stone tools, they processed animals, and in at least one disturbing case, a stone blade appeared to have cut the flesh of another hominid. There was no single march towards humanity here. There was experiment, competition, adaptation, and survival. The fossil of Kobifora remind us that human evolution was never a ladder. It was a branching tree, full of limbs that grew alongside one another. Some survive for millions of years, some disappear entirely, and one disturbing branch would eventually lead to us. But bones are only one way our ancestors left their story behind. Sometimes the most revealing evidence fit inside the palm of a hand. A shaped piece of stone, a cutting edge, a tool made deliberately, used, abandoned, and buried for hundreds of thousands of years. In our next episode, we travel south from Kenya into Tanzania, where near the city of Iringa, erosion has cut through ancient sediments to reveal a remarkable Stone Age landscape, a place where stone tools survived in extraordinary numbers. Hand axes, clavers, tools shaped by human hand and left behind in a landscape utterly different from the one we see today. We are going to the Isimila Stone Age site, a place where the story of human evolution is written not only in bone, but in the things our ancestors learned to make. Because long before writing recorded our thoughts, long before cities recorded our ambition, and long before monuments recorded the name of king, stone recorded the movement of the human mind. One strike at a time, one edge at a time, one idea passed on through generation. Until then, keep looking beneath the surface because the earth does not forget, it only waits. Till then, be curious and keep questioning with history under the cap.